Hey everybody, Dirkie here with another pixel perfect video. In this video I'm going to explain to you guys how I make basic signs, and now the signs I'm actually showing right now are signs commissioned by somebody on my Patreon. Well, he supports me or supported me, and he commissioned or asked me to make a bunch of, I think they're Mexican store signs. So we came up with names that are similar but not the same. And then I took their general design idea and applied that to, well, these signs. And I think that turned out pretty good, cool, and it looked pretty good in game. And I'll show you guys how to, make a sign from scratch by just having a text. So I'm going to create a new document, and the size isn't really relevant because we're going to scale it later towards Zomboid skill tiles anyway. And how I'd go about it if you don't have a plan, just bash in some letters, and let's take a more generic font real quick. Arial should, no, wrong one. Arial should be fine, so we can at least read what we're doing. And if you don't have a name for your thing, you could just bash something on your keyboard and give that a couple attempts and see if something comes up. Fuckaboo. Fat cube. Vacuum could work. I don't know. I think that's all right. How I go about it, if you look at real store signs in real life, they often, they pay a designer to come up with some smart ass design to make it look cool. So usually it is more than just a word. Now, the thing you can do is, take a specific font that works and makes it look unique. Like this is probably good enough if you want to go for a sign. So you can, if you go get a font, make sure you're free to use it, and it's not like, if you put it in a paid product, you're required to pay for the font, and then you can say, yeah, my mod is free, and that's true, but it ends up being in Project Zomboid, and that is a paid product. So make sure you don't get any things that you have to pay for or could get you into trouble. Putting that aside, getting a cool font should do like most of the work. Otherwise, you can do things like, let's say Arial, because Arial's pretty basic. What you could do is make the first letter bigger, something like that, maybe even way bigger, or just give that one crap, I'm not great with fonts, like italic, make that a little bit special. And that already gives it a way better vibe to it. Now you can of course also just do like colors and probably make this gray, and then make this one like, I don't know, let's go with purple, like that. And let's make the background medium gray, so maybe darker gray, so we can actually see what we're doing. And this already looks a lot cooler. We can, and I know you have, like in every software, like the tool for texts is different, so you probably have to figure out where that stuff is. But you can make the spacing between the letters a little bit different, or like the size in general, and play with it that way. It really just depends on what kind of look you're going for. I think V-cube could work for like a medical store for some reason. I'm not sure why. It kind of just speaks to me like that. And I'm gonna go with white again because that was easier to, let's go with offset dark color. That works. That's actually a pretty cool idea for a background color. But yeah, I think this looks pretty interesting. I'm gonna add a line underneath. Just make sure it's the complete width till the end. Scale it down a bit. Make it look a little bit more interesting. And that's actually behind the letters. I'm not sure if I want that. Maybe I want it to be on top. Behind. I think behind actually looks pretty interesting. So So we're gonna line it with the V. Actually, make it a little bit lower, something like that. Like we had before. That's pretty cool. I'm gonna sort of erase the edges so it lines up with edges of the V, sort of. Zoomed out, it'll look better. I think that's pretty cool. I think that's actually pretty cool for a first sign. So let's merge this into one layer so we have one sign. I do recommend doing this with different layers so you have a backup and you actually can go back to it. But in this video I'm not going to go back to it, so I'm just going to copy this entire thing and put it into my sign style sheet. Now if you don't know how tile sheets work, I recommend watching the earlier videos in this series. Use the dark background we had before because that looked pretty cool. Throw all of the other layers into a different folder so I can actually organize this stuff a little bit. And then we have vacuum. I'm gonna create a new layer and make it the purple background, so the square thing. Kind of size that so it looks good. Maybe something like that. I think that's all right. We can maybe make it a little bit smaller. Really depends on the look that you want to go for. I like bigger better in this case. So maybe like that, offset it a little bit. I think that's all right. I think that's pretty cool. All right, so we have that down. I'm gonna group these, and then I'm gonna do my basic trick of how I make all this stuff look, fitting for Zomboid. So I'm gonna create a new layer, or in this case, I'm gonna copy the background because that's gonna cover the entire image. I'm gonna add a noise, of course. I'm gonna decrease the saturation of that noise by pressing Ctrl with the U button to open the U saturation menu, and put that layer on 2% to give it a little bit of a speckle, dithering, whatever you want to call it. Of course, I'm going to create a new layer and grab a brownish color with a random sized brush and just click and drag, make it a little bit dirty. And I'm going to create another layer and do that same thing with like green and with a different brush. You don't have to put too much work into this, just a little bit. A little bit should be enough. Of course, you can go in with an eraser at a lower opacity and just go back in and clean it back up a bit. So maybe the bottom part is dirtier than the top. And just make sure you have a random pattern in this so it looks like it's just dirty and it's not really fucked up. Now what I'm going to do is select the background box in this case. So I select everything except for the inside. I can just go in and delete everything that's sticking out. And I think vacuum's looking pretty cool. I'm going to go into image, then adjustments and brightness contrast to increase the maybe the contrast a little bit. Oh, it's actually popping just a little bit more, and then we can tune it down later. So do I like that? Actually, great problem. No, let's go with the lighter one. Let's do it like this. Okay, so usually I'd say keep this all separate, copy it and merge it into one layer so we can work with it. I'm not going to do that because it's part of the tutorial. I'm not going to go back anyway. I merge it all to one layer. I make a copy by holding Alt and drag. Again, that only applies in Photoshop. And I'm going to skew both of them. So I'm going to do the first one is going to be 26,7. So that is the right angle to do this stuff. And the other one is going to be negative 26 point, never get it right, 26.7. So we have both angles that the player can visit. But as you can see, they are huge. These signs are massive, and definitely compared to the other ones, it's not gonna fit in any way. So this is where Throttle Kitty's basic template comes into play. And in there you have a floor mask ISO, which shows you all the floor tiles. And this makes it really easy to scale them to fit. So as you can see, I have one tile here, one tile here, one tile here, one tile here, one tile there, etc. Let's say we only want these signs to be 4 tiles. So I'm going to select both of them, hit Ctrl T to open my transform menu and scale them down. So they only fit, or they fit in 1, 2, 3, 4 tiles. So now they should be 4 tiles wide. Hit enter and there we go. We can move these into place. But there is another step I'd like to do because they're really flat as they are. Now this can work for some signs, and I think we could have. Okay, let's go back actually. Stupid part for the tutorial. Let's go back, because I said I wasn't gonna make the change, but I am, because I'm gonna keep the vacuum part separate from all the other stuff. That means I'm gonna get all the overlay stuff and merge those together. The background's gonna be separate and vacuum's gonna be separate. I'm gonna copy the entire layer and just skew all of it in there. So why not just do it that way? It's only 6.7. Do the same thing for the other one. Now I hit Ctrl T and I right click skew. You don't actually have to hit skew. You can actually do Ctrl T and just go up here and just type it straight away. Then we go scale it, so I can just scale the entire groups now. This would have been smarter to do this from the start. Actually, I think I only want it to be 3 tiles. It'd be good like that. Hit enter, and now the magic that we're gonna do is copy this, move it down, and just move it to the left a little bit, and we're gonna give it. Actually, that does the trick already. That's good enough. Should make it a little bit darker, maybe. It's not, so it creates a little bit of a 3D effect. And do the same thing for the other one. Move it to the left, maybe up a bit. Make sure there's no gaps. Ctrl U, and then go lightness and just make it a little bit darker. Is this perfect? No, but it looks pretty good. I think that looks pretty cool. Let's change that one a little bit so it goes like that. I think that's the right angle. This could also be a club, but whatever. Okay, so we move them into place, and like I was gonna say, is the signs look very flat. And in this case, I don't want that. I want them to have a nice little edge like this. You can imagine I'm gonna do it the same way I just did it with the entire thing. I can just copy the background layer in this case. If you have merged the entire thing, you can just copy the entire thing and put it behind the original, and it's gonna look exactly the same. I'm gonna double click it. This is a function for Photoshop. I don't know how you do this in GIMP. And I'm just gonna give it a color overlay, and I'm gonna select that same color so I know it's all the same. Now in this case it actually was already, so it doesn't really change all that much, so I don't have to do that. But if you have a multicolor thing, or you want to have, let's say, a different color background because they didn't actually color the rest of the sign, this would be the way to do it. Let's just continue with this. Move it into place where you think, oh, this is a decent thickness. And then of course the bottom's gonna look a little bit weird in the top as well, but we'll quickly fix that. I'm gonna use my pencil tool to draw and select a regular brush. I'm just gonna fill in the gaps, just like that. It's gonna be an easy, quick fix. That fixes that issue. Now in Photoshop we just have this effect that colors it, and I can draw with any color I want and it's still going to be that same color, which is nice for the thing we just did where we fixed it, but not as nice if we want to do the next step. So I'm going to right click it and hit rasterize layer style. That means I can now draw any color again because the layer style has been applied and it's no longer doing the effect all the time. Next step would be to hit the, oh, wrong one, the burn tool, and just burn the side a bit to make sure that's darker because it's not getting as much light. And then for the top, you could use dodge. You don't have to in this case. For the other sign, it's going to be more relevant due to the other angle. So let's get to that one. We copy the background, give it the same color overlay, move it into place where we think this is decent thickness, like that. Fix the issue. Rasterize layer styles. Go to dodge and burn. Dodge the top a lot, and then in this case the side as well, due to the light coming from the left, of course. There you go. We got some nice looking signs. They are a little bit dark, yes, for sure. We could go in and make these a little bit lighter. Make it fit the Zomboid aesthetic a little bit more, because Zomboid colors are usually not really saturated and sharp. And I think the words should also be a little bit less, less contrast. So let's decrease that for both. Now again, if I were to keep these for editing later, I would definitely copy this and keep these as work files, but in this case I'm just going to select the folder and hit Ctrl E to merge all the layers inside, so we now have these two objects. I'm going to put them, am I dragging the right one? No. Put them in place where the the wall would generally be, so around there. I'm going to see if they line up a little bit evenly. So there's a gap that's about the same size as this gap. And then there's a ton of different ways to cut things, but for signs you can do a very easy way, is where you select the entire thing up until around where it's leaving the floor plane. And you move it over 64 pixels, and this part was higher than that part, you can see it's going up, and it means you move this 64 pixels to the side and then 32 pixels down. And then you do the same thing with this last piece. So we go 64 there and then 32 down. There we go. I'm going to do the same thing with this one. So first we're going to make sure it aligns against the wall, something like that. About the same gap between the edges of the tiles, so it's nice and centered. And then we can do the same thing with this one, where we move it 64. But due to this one being lower than the first part, we're gonna go up 32. Like that. And then we do that for the last piece as well. Oh, crap. There we go, 64 and then 32. Now I'm gonna hit save. I'm gonna save this out as my test image. Put that in the folder. Get that out of the way. Put that into my 2x folder. Oversave that. Go back into building editor. Our sign should be right here. Let's put that into the game. And that's how you add a sign, or well, when I say into the game, of course I mean into the editor. Let's put a wall behind it just to have a bit of reference. You can see the colors are quite intense, but not breaking. We can do a little bit more tweaking with the saturation, but I think when you're going to make your own sign, you'll have to, do that anyway. But this is how I make basic signs. This is my go-to technique when it comes to sign making, and overall it works pretty well. Some signs take a little bit more effort, and of course you can do little tricks, and the ones you're looking at are based on real signs, but like having like a big ass capital letter in front, or you know, merging the letters a little bit, you know, adding a connection between letters is a nice and easy way to make it look like it was designed by a professional and not by you on a Thursday evening when you had nothing better to do. But I hope this kind of explains how I make my signs. If you like these videos, you know, of course I have a Patreon if you want to support me, or just like and subscribe to videos. I really appreciate that as well. And I hope you guys have a very, very nice day. Thank you for watching.